YouTube, what's good? It's your boy Darren, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. Fragrance and fashion, we talk about both of those things on this channel. So if you like to look good and smell great, I think you might enjoy the content on this channel. So please consider hitting the subscribe button and also make sure you hit the bell icon as well, just to make sure when I upload new content on the channel, YouTube notifies you. So first, guys, I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you guys had a great, blessed, and Happy New Year. 2022, man, we're going to get this thing kicked off this year with a fragrance video that I think will still be good, even if you have been collecting for a while now. Just to kind of, as a measuring stick maybe for folks like that, or of course if you're just starting out, I think this will be a great video for you to take a look at. I'm going to be talking about 10 fragrances that every collector must own, especially beginning collectors. So when you're first starting out collecting fragrances, once you start to kind of get the wheels going a little bit and start to kind of accumulate or grow your collection, I think these are 10 fragrances that everybody must have in their collection. And I'm kind of going to give my reasons why I feel like each of these 10 fragrances fit that description. So if you want to see what's on the list, you know how we get down, keep it locked right here. All right, we're back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked in. Let's go ahead and jump into the list. Really quick, I do want to say, guys, I'm feeling a lot better. So is everybody in my family. So anybody that commented on my last video and said that, you know, you had us in your prayers, I sincerely appreciate it, because we're all feeling a lot better now. And I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy and excited to get into this list, guys. As always, I have my coffee here. So we're going to talk about some good fragrances and enjoy some coffee. That's the life. All right, guys, the first fragrance that I have on this list, this is 10 fragrances. Again, if you missed it, 10 fragrances every beginning collector must have in their collection to call themselves a collector, okay? These are the 10 recommendations from me. The first one comes from the house of Mugler, and this one is called Pure Malt. Pure Malt. Now, this fragrance, just like Pure Havane, these two fragrances are getting harder and harder to find. I don't know, it seems to be, from what I can see, there seems to be a history with Mugler and this whole line of fragrances coming in, being discontinued, at least momentarily sometimes, and then coming back. I think back in the day that happened with this one as well. So right now it's out of stock. It's getting harder to find. Prices are starting to shoot way up. So keep that in mind. But with that being said, I think everybody should have this fragrance in their collection. At the original price, which is $89, this, as well as Pure Havane, in my opinion, it's just, they're so criminally underpriced really for what you're getting. And, you know, so when this fragrance line actually started back in '96 with the original fragrance from this particular line, the original Amen fragrance for men, it kind of changed the game, because at that time it was all about, you know, your fresh citrus fragrances, your aquatics. And this fragrance came in and really just kind of, you know, gave fragrance collectors something very, very different. That patchouli, it was kind of a gourmand scent, and that's when people really started to get into that genre of fragrances back then, of gourmands. And this was one of the best to kind of do it. Honestly, one of the first to kind of do it in the fashion that it did, like this, with the booziness. You have the malt, the whiskey, you have the coffee in this, you have the vanilla. And what I love about it, how they combine the fruitier accords and the opening of this, just an amazing fragrance. If you're a collector, you definitely need to have this in your collection, Pure Malt. If you can't get this, try the original Amen. I think that one is still in production right now. But if you can find this, if you don't have it yet, before prices get too crazy, make sure you put Pure Malt from Mugler in your collection. All right, guys, now the next fragrance on this list, this is still, in my humble opinion, probably one of the best date night fragrances ever created from the house of Dolce & Gabbana. This is Dolce & Gabbana, the One Eau de Parfum. Eau de Parfum. Now, there's been a lot of flankers from the original Dolce & Gabbana, the One, the EDT. Of course, this being one, the EDP, but with all those other ones that have come out, Mysterious Nights, Royal Nights, Luminous Nights, and the list goes on and on. This is still the best to me. You have the beautiful ambery chords with some, I think it's orange blossom in the opening. You have amber, and you have, of course, the tobacco. One of the sexiest fragrances ever created. Some people really complained about the performance on this, but I don't really care about that. Again, for what you're getting, the overall scent DNA of this fragrance to me really makes up for what it lacks in performance. But every beginner out there that's starting a collection, I think this should be in your collection because it is so good for what it is. And the again, if you're looking at the genre of a date night fragrance, I think everybody should have a great date night fragrance, whether you're single or married or whatever the case may be. This is one you need to have in your collection for a great date night scent. From the house of Dolce & Gabbana, make sure you have the One Eau de Parfum. All right, the next fragrance that I highly recommend you have in your collection as a beginner comes from the house of Armaf, and this is called Club de Nuit Intense Man. Club de Nuit Intense Man. Now, the reason I recommend you have this because if you're starting to collect and you're in the beginning stages, you're going to hear a lot about Acqu Di Gio. And if you're anything like me, when I first started collecting, I wasn't really comfortable with spending anything over $250, $300 on a fragrance at that time. But I heard so much about Acqu Di Gio, I wanted to really know what the hype and the fuss was all about. Now, fast forward, I will tell you I have Acqu Di Gio, of course, and to me it's worth it. It's just one of those fragrances you have to get. But when you're first starting out, if you're anything like me, again, you're not going to be comfortable spending that amount of money. So this is the closest you're going to get to Acqu Di Gio without having Acqu Di Gio, of course. And this is Club de Nuit Intense Man by Armaf. I have several bottles of this in my collection because Acqu Di Gio, when I first started collecting Acqu fragrances, I was collecting the 4-ounce bottles. Those have since now gone away, and I really feel like Acqu kind of lost some of their prestige and quality when they started coming out with the 3.3-ounce bottles. So I'm trying to cherish my 4-ounce bottles. So when I have a hankering for Acqu Di Gio, honestly, this is the closest thing to the original Aventus to me. Club de Nuit Intense, man. You can get this for $27. So just know that you'll be getting a really good idea of what Acqu Di Gio smells like without actually having to purchase a bottle of Acqu Di Gio by purchasing this right here. So that's why it's on the list. I think you should have this one in your collection as a beginner from the house of Armaf. This is Club de Nuit Intense Man. All right, guys, the next fragrance on the list, we're going to have a run of 3 fragrances that kind of fit the same description and they actually have kind of the same purpose or the same reason that I would have these on this list as a beginner, including these from the house of Christian Dior. This is Dior Sauvage. Now, this is the Eau de Toilette. This was the first one that I got, of course, back in 2015. My bottle's all the way down to here. I do have the EDP as well as the Parfum. But for a beginner collector, I always start with the Eau de Toilette. It's less expensive than the other two. And basically, especially with this Dior Sauvage line, it's basically the same thing for the most part. So start with the Eau de Toilette. You have to have this in your collection because over the past 5 or 6 years, this is just probably the most popular designer fragrance that has come out over the last 6 years. Now, a lot of people have kind of put it in the doghouse because there are so many people that wear this fragrance, and I won't argue that point. But when you're first starting your collection, this is one that you just gotta have. It's just a must-have fragrance because of how good it is. It wouldn't be one of the most worn or purchased fragrances over the last 6 years if it was not good. So make sure you have this in your collection from the house of Christian Dior. This is Dior Sauvage. All right, guys, the next fragrance that I think you should have as a beginning collector, this kind of goes in the same category as Dior Sauvage. This is Acqua Di Gio Profumo by Giorgio Armani. Now, this fragrance came out, I think, around 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And again, I always say this. The original Acqua Di Gio was and still is the best-selling men's fragrance of all time. So when this one came out in 2016, to me, it actually made a great fragrance DNA even better. Now, in my opinion, a lot of times, especially if you want to make this comparison and analogy to movies, right? It's really hard sometimes when you do a great movie to come out with a sequel that's better than the original. It's really hard to do that. i.e. see coming to America. But with that being said, when you look at the original Acqua Di Gio, when they added the incense, the patchouli to that DNA, they made an already amazing scent DNA even better. It's more versatile now. You can wear it more seasons. It's more season appropriate for year round. And it smells a little bit better too, to me, with that incense and that slight earthy dirtiness you get from that patchouli in this. I love this stuff. This should be in everybody's collection, so make sure it's in yours. From the house of Giorgio Armani, again, this is Acqua Di Gio Profumo. Now, the next fragrance on this list will complete that trifecta of fragrances, and this one is from the house of Chanel, and this is Bleu de Chanel. This is the Eau de Toilette. Now, guys, I've only had the Eau de Toilette for less than a year. I preferred the EDP when I first actually went out looking for this fragrance, and I didn't know as much as I did then as I do now about fragrances. I smelled the EDP first, and then I went back looking for it, and I put my nose on the EDT, and I was like, maybe something is wrong with this one, because this doesn't quite smell like what I smelled the first time. Well, long story short, I had smelled the EDP, which is a little bit more creamy, to me a little sweeter than the EDT, and that's what I was looking for. But anyway, like I said, beginning collectors, I always say start with the EDT. Just like Acqua Di Gio Profumo, just like Dior Sauvage, this is just one you gotta have. One of the most versatile fragrances that designer fragrances that money can buy. That's one of the reasons that I think you should have it, and it actually smells absolutely fantastic. This EDT version of Bleu de Chanel is a more citric take on the DNA, what you'll find once you finally put your nose on the EDP and consequently the parfum, but still great nonetheless. This thing is versatile. You can wear any place, anytime, any season, any reason, any occasion, and it's going to work. So you're going to hear a lot about this one as well when you first start collecting. So go ahead and get it in your collection from the house of Chanel. This is called Bleu de Chanel, and this is the Eau de Toilette. All right, the next fragrance that I think you should have as a beginning collector is from the house of YSL, Yves Saint Laurent, and this is called YSL La Nuit de L'Homme. La Nuit de L'Homme. Now, this fragrance would probably have something to say about me calling Dolce & Gabbana the best date night designer fragrance on the planet, because this will rival that fragrance for that title. La Nuit de L'Homme, again, a fragrance that's been out for a while now, and it's kind of over the course of time, it's one of those things. Fragrances come out all the time, so some of the older fragrances don't get talked about as much, but don't get it twisted. This is still one of the best designer fragrances, in my opinion, ever created, especially again for that sweet, sexy date night fragrance profile. This is one of the best fragrances for that type of occasion. Date night, sexy, you have that sweet, sexy cardamom note, which this is really, in my opinion, popularized the note of cardamom. Everybody started using cardamom seemingly because of the way it was used in this fragrance right here. Again, it's sweet, it's slightly playful, but more sexy than playful, but it's a right balance between the two in this scent right here. But again, nonetheless, regardless of what formulation you get, don't foul people up when they talk about fragrances, formulations of this pre-2013, I want to say, that perform really well. You don't need that. Just get whatever formulation of this that you can get your hands on, and you'll be pleased with it. From the house of YSL, again, this is called La Nuit de L'Homme. All right, guys, the next fragrance on the list that I think every beginner should have in their collection, and this simply, you need to have this because it just smells freaking amazing. From the house of Versace, this is Versace Dylan Blue. Versace Dylan Blue, again, you'll hear a lot about blue fragrances when you start collecting, and to me, this is one of my favorites. This one has ambroxan in it. This is just, again, in my opinion, on this list because this thing just smells freaking phenomenal. I remember when I first got introduced to this fragrance, I purchased something else, got a sample of this, and immediately said, have to have this one. It's something just very captivating and alluring about this particular scent to me. So I'm recommending that as a beginner, you go ahead and get this in your collection from the house of Versace. Again, this one is called Dylan Blue. All right, now the next fragrance that I recommend that you have as a beginning collector is from the house of Versace as well, and this is called Versace Man Eau Fraiche. Versace Man Eau Fraiche. This has the infamous star fruit note in this fragrance right here. And this is one of the best designer fragrances that you can get for the summertime. Now, I usually have a spray routine that I follow, but with this one, I just go crazy with the trigger. This is a 7 sprayer for me, but sometimes I go a little bit heavier than that because it's so inoffensive, so clean, so fresh and easy to wear. And again, it's not gonna break the bank. So you can spray a lot of this and really not have to be concerned about having to get another bottle, because you can find this pretty much anywhere fragrances are sold, from discounters to department stores to rack stores across the world. You can find this scent. It's easily accessible and it smells great for what you're going to pay for it. So a summer staple that I think every collector should have in their collection from the house of Versace. This is Versace Man Eau Fraiche. All right, and last but not least, guys, I saved one of the best for last for so many reasons, and I will chronicle those reasons in just a moment. But you gotta have this if you really consider yourself to be a collector, and this one comes from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, and this is called Le Male. Simply called Le Male. And this was done by the infamous Mason Francis Kirkjohn when he first got into doing fragrances before he had his own collection. This is one of the masterpieces that he created. And I remember growing up, most of the people that were older than me that were into fragrances, everybody had this torso sitting on their dresser and had this fragrance in their collection. Now this has spawned a lot of other fragrances that have kind of mimicked the Le Male DNA, but this of course is the original right here. Now this particular bottle that I have was a one of their holiday editions, I think from 2020, might have been, I think. And I love it because I love red and white. Shout out to the noobs. But the original Jean-Paul Gaultier, of course, it has, it's kind of like the, I don't know, it's like a marine blue color with the white stripes. You know what I'm talking about. Again, if you call yourself a collector, this is just one that you have to have in your collection. It's classic. And even to this day, although it was, I think it came out in 96 or 95, the DNA of this fragrance is still not old, it's not dated. And that's something that I really, really love about this. I sprayed this on the other day and I still love this scent DNA. Not quite as potent as it was back in the day, but at the end of the day, that's just how it works with reformulations. But nonetheless, if you're a collector, you need to have this in your collection, guys. Get this, you can't call yourself a collector if you don't have Le Male in your fragrance collection. All right, guys, that's it. That's my time. I hope you enjoyed this list today as we kicked off the year of 2022 with 10 fragrances that I feel like every beginning collector should have in their collection. As always, man, I appreciate you guys watching this video. I appreciate your time, your attention to these videos. You don't have to watch, but you do, and I sincerely appreciate it. Now, don't forget, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And go ahead and share these videos out to some other folks that you think can use this information or find it entertaining. Because I'm your guy, Darian, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I love to look good, and of course, I love to smell amazing. So until next time, guys, keep looking good, keep smelling even better. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.